Yeah, that's fine.
Done.
The pipes rattled as the pressure started to build, and it was like a ticking time bomb. When the pressure was strong enough, boom, the Gulf was changed forever. Now it's important to understand how the Deepwater Horizon oil spill affected the Gulf to truly understand how an event like this can leave an impact on a region forever. Now, as a resident and as a student in the Gulf Coast my entire life, I personally witnessed how the spill affected my life, other people's lives, and learned about the spill in school for many years. It affected your lives as well, even if you didn't realize it. In many ways, if you bought gas, if you ate seafood, if you had an hourly wage job, the spill affected you. Mainly, the spill affected the environment, the people's well-being in the region, and even the public policy and law regulating offshore oil rig industry. Now, most importantly, it impacted the environment. Now, the environment and the ecosystems were hit with something that they never had really been faced with before. And thanks to Schultz and Walsh's article in the Behavioral Health Sciences Journal, we know that there was 4.9 million barrels of oil released into the ocean, covering almost 68,000 square miles, making it not only the largest oil spill in the Gulf's history, but also in the history of the United States. Thanks to Fitzgerald and Galke's study in the Environmental Science and Technology Journal, in which they studied 250 different species of marine life, they found that 170 of those different species were contaminated with oil. And they were predicting that the avian population of the Gulf would be affected as well because they ate these marine species, as well as landed in the 68,000 square miles of oil-filled water. Now, not only were the environmental impacts strong on the animals, they were also strong on vegetation along the coast as well, specifically the marshes of Louisiana. Now, thanks to Kana and Santos' study in the Remote Sensing Journal, they found that contaminated marshes of oil had vegetation recession 8 times greater than that of marshes that had not been reached by the oil spill. And to this day, the oil spill has still affected those marshes because the rate is still as high. Now, the spill not only did a number on the environment, but it also affected the well-being of the people of the Gulf Coast. It did a lot of bad and a very short-lived amount of good for the people in the region. Liam Blanchard's study in the American Journal of Behavioral Science looked at 2 studies done by the federal government on mental health along the coast. And those studies found that mental health disorders increased tremendously in the following months after the oil spill. Disorders such as depression, anxiety, and even eating disorders were developed by the people along the coast. Now, this small shiver of light in the entire oil spill was the jobs it created. Talagani and Tayagi's research on the BP General Report found that BP pumped millions of dollars into the region to try and affect and clean the oil spill. This created more jobs than were actually in the region beforehand. And the problem with that was, though, that once the oil was cleaned, these people that had just recently found new jobs lost their jobs, and BP fired thousands of workers because the job was done. Now, lastly, the spill affected the law and policy of the people and offshore oil rig industry. Legally, for the people of the region, it was grim. Faye Pappas in the Florida Journal of Law and Policy wrote that the lack of litigation and public policy to protect people from an oil spill of this magnitude was missing. There was none. It was incredible how there had been no reports or no public policy written for the people to protect them. She also wrote that in her interviews with people trying to file court cases against BP, that they were just lacking the confidence and in many cases the means to fight out a 6-month to a year court case against one of these oil industries that has all the resources in the world. And in the short run, things didn't get much better, but thankfully things started to change. Birkeland and DeYoung's study in the Journal of Federalism looked at the doctrines involved in regulating and policing the oil industry. They found that the doctrines were outdated and hadn't really been revised since the Exxon Valdez oil spill in the 1980s. Now, there was a public outcry after this study was done for reform by the government and the administration to change these policies, and luckily the government responded. Before the government had changed the doctrines, the companies were policing themselves, as in a fox guarding a hen house. But now, the government actually polices the industries firsthand. They send officials out daily, generally to the rigs, to make sure that all of the rules are being followed. Now, the change in policy was too little too late, and the jobs, the money, and even the lives that were lost because of the oil spill can never be recovered. But there is one thing for sure. The environment, the people, and the policy have been changed forever. And the lasting impact that the Deepwater Horizon oil drill spill had on the coast was incredible. It's important to understand how this type of an event can impact not only the region for a couple of years, but forever. Because the well from hell took a toll on the region, and it was incredible. Thank you. Any questions?
Did this story affect any baby animals that didn't get a chance to live very long?
Did this spill affect any baby animals that didn't get to live? Actually, it killed thousands of small fish and birds that couldn't outswim or fly away from the oil spill because it was too heavy for them to take off, or they breathed it in through their gills. So yes, it did kill thousands of creatures, yeah. Anything else?
You mentioned policy. Are they still working on new laws and programs for this, to keep this from happening?
The government actually now, under the Trump administration, has passed 3 laws regarding policy on offshore oil rig industry, and all 3 of the laws provide more of a protection to the workers and more of a liability of the industry itself to protect their workers and the people that work for them. Thank you very much.